Hi there everyone, Scapegoat Stephen, and I guess I'm back doing content. It's been a very long time since I've actually been recording anything, but I've finally found myself a game that actually I'm enjoying a lot more again, and especially that skirmish level, easy to record and get content out for. So, as you may have guessed from the title of the video, this is now going to be a series of Marvel Crisis Protocol videos. These first few were recorded and attended a few weeks ago, and I've been just sort of trying to put them all together over the past fortnight. It was the first event my local club ran, as quite a few of us have started getting into Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, without any further ado, let's jump right in. So this is the first game. We've got Uncanny X-Men that will be on the left of the screen, played by Rid, and Midnight Suns on the right of the screen that will be played by Barry. So they managed to get an 18-threat game using Skrulls Infiltrate, World Leadership, and Portal's Overrun City with Spider People. So Rid's Uncanny X-Men ended up as Storm as the leader, Cable, Rogue, Magick, and Domino. And he picked the cards to Me My Xmen, Brace for Impact, First Class, Journey Through Limbo, and Mission Objective. Meanwhile, Barry picked obviously Blade as his leader for Midnight Suns, Bulleye, Black Cat, Ghost Rider, and Dr. Voodoo. He then picked Deal with the Devil, Bats the Ghost Hound, Seance, Siege of Darkness, and Medpack as his cards. So this is our table for Game 1. As you can see, most of the scenery has got sort of numbered stickers on to be able to figure out the size of it. It should be reasonably clear from the video as to what's which size. The shed on the top right is, I believe, a size 5, although it doesn't actually come into play in this particular game. So Barry starts by dropping Bulleye just there, sort of centre, aiming to take the initiative and going for the first token just in front of him. Storm gets dropped in a similar position directly opposite. Barry then drops Blade towards the top right of your screen. Rid deliberates over sort of like Blade's threat ranges and trying to figure out where he wants to put someone next. And I believe he's just dropped Magick. Or maybe Rogue, sorry, no, that's Rogue. Ghost Rider's now on the bottom right of your screen. Again, there's a bit of discussion between the players over sort of checking stat cards, trying to understand what cards each had, just to check threat ranges and that sort of thing. Cable's dropped on the bottom left, Black Cat on the bottom right, Domino just there near Cable, within 2 of him, and then Magick, sorry, finally at the top left, and Dr. Voodoo just next to Blade on the top right. So, Rid is actually going to play a card straight away. He's going to play First Class to ensure that everyone has a First Class token to enable them to more easily interact with objectives in the first turn, which then leaves Barry to actually start his activation. So Bullseye's just going to walk forward to within 1 inch of that spider portal, and he's going to roll to try and take control of it. Unfortunately, he actually fails, as well as rolling a skull, which with a spider portal then means he gets placed within 2 of his current position. So Rid obviously looking at the fact that Bullseye is a reasonable ranged threat, just pushes him back, and then Barry has to use his second action just to sort of move back into contesting range. So Storm's going to spend going to walk, then spend a First Class token to flip a spider portal. She also rolls a skull, so Barry pushes her backwards, and much like Bullseye, she does exactly the same thing and walks forward again. So Blade's going to activate next. Barry can deliberate over exactly what he wants to do, but in the end, Blade will make a double move towards that top skull token, and he will attempt to see if he can find the Skrull, which he does not. So Storm then plays To Me My Xmen, targeting Magick, who you can probably see at the moment is at the very top left of the screen, just near the front end of that train. And what he's then going to do is allow Magick obviously to move just that little bit of extra movement towards that Skrull portal. It's just a little bit of extra sort of threat range. He does consider whether or not actually moves Cable instead at first, but in the end decides to go with that Magick play. So it enables her to move with To Me My Xmen, which I believe is a small move. She's then going to move to interact with the Skrull with her first action. She fails also to identify whether or not the Skrull is there, because they're being very tricksy in this particular matchup. And then Magick will then move away. Bear in mind, she also used the first class token to interact with that Skrull, even. So that means that she's obviously still got her power that she's building for next turn. Barry then decides to just go Ghost Rider. And he just double moves Ghost Rider, because unfortunately Ghost Rider isn't quite close enough to get there in a single move. So he double moves with Ghost Rider and then pays to flip the portal that's underneath that Skrull. And does he succeed? He does succeed. So that's a portal for the Midnight Suns on the bottom, and the X-Men have got a portal on the left. Sorry, my apologies. Actually, Magick interacted with the portal on the top, not with the Skrull, and she did succeed on that portal. So she's got that portal next to Blade, and the Midnight Suns have got the bottom portal. Storm has got the central portal on her side, but Bullseye failed to interact with his portal. Rogue goes next and just moves twice towards Ghost Rider. She's not going to be close enough to be able to do any attacks, and she's not got the energy to do a charge move. So Voodoo's going to go next. Voodoo is going to double move, and he wants to try and get rid of that X-Men token on the Spider Portal, which he does succeed in doing, but he also rolls a skull and is forced to be placed within 2 by Rid. So there's a lot of, as you can see, a lot of this extra movement being caused by the Spider Portals in this game already, which can obviously be a little bit of disruption for future planning and future movement. Domino is then going to use Storm's leadership. So again, Rid looks at is it worth moving Cable to have a shot at Ghost Rider, but in the end decides he's going to use Domino via Storm's leadership to place her within 1 inch of Cable. She then moves twice and spends her first class token in an attempt to flip the bottom portal, but she fails and also rolls a skull, which is a theme, as you can tell already, of this match, and she is placed backwards. After that, Black Cat is going to go. She is going to double move towards that middle objective. Now, she is a long mover, so she's pretty fast, but unfortunately she's just somehow managed not to quite get to the portal. So Cable, final activation of the turn. He's just going to move, and he's going to have a pop with his energy rifle at Ghost Rider. He gets 2 hits. Ghost Rider gets 1 defense. So in total, Ghost Rider takes a single point of damage. So that makes it, points-wise, at the end of that turn, the X-Men have a single point for the objective next to Storm, and Midnight Suns have 2 from the 2 Spider Portals they have at the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen. Bullseye, as we said, failing to flip that one in the middle. So, there's a little bit of discussion here about who goes where next. Barry has the initiative still, so it's whether or not he goes into attacking anyone, but in the end he looks at Rogue's stat line and decides he wants none of that. He's going to pay 1 to try and detect the Skrull on the bottom objective and fails, and then he's just going to move twice to just run away from Rogue. Which, if anyone has seen Rogue's stat line, I don't blame him. So Rogue is actually going to go next, and she's going to spend 2 to charge Black Cat. She does a total of 3 hits and does a sap, so she steals a power from Black Cat. Black Cat rolls 1 defense, so it ends up taking 2 damage. Rogue then punches again, saps another power off Black Cat, and does 1 damage because Black Cat fails to roll a defense. In the end, she then spends 3 to pick up the train next to Black Cat and just drop it on her head. And in the end, Black Cat fails to actually roll enough dodge dice and then is basically squashed by that train. So that means Black Cat is dazed without having actually taken any actions this turn. So Barry's actually just going to skip his next activation. He's not going to activate anyone. I think, which is probably a wise move, given how far spread the X-Men are towards this bottom and central objective. So Rid's then going to try and figure out who does he want to go with next. Obviously, he's got Portal at the bottom, Portal at the top, which need to be flipped, and the Skrull still has not yet been found. In the end, he decides to play a little bit safe, which is probably the smart move. Domino will go towards this bottom objective, just so she's just within 1. And then she's going to try and attempt to flip the spider portal, which she manages for the second attempt. She's then going to move closer to Rogue, and then she is going to use Storm's X-Men leadership to place the other side of Rogue, as you just saw, and then she tries to detect the Skrull on the central objective, but fails. Bulleye is going to go next. He uses the Midnight Sun's leadership ability, Bump in the Night, to move himself a little bit forward. And then he's just going to take some shots at Domino, just to try and soften her up a little bit. Now, he only gets 1 success, but Domino also fails to get any defense, so she takes a point of damage. He then follows up with the rapid fire shot, getting a success, but Domino scores 2 defense, so there'll be no damage. He then interacts with the portal right next to him, and finally he manages to take hold of that portal. So it took him a little bit of a couple of turns, and actually his fire, I think, was more just as a power builder on himself rather than necessarily as any form of damage on Domino. So Cable's going to go next. He's going to move twice, and he tries to find the Skrull on this bottom objective nearer the screen, and you know what? He does. So the Skrull is now actually firmly, quite safely in the hands of Cable right now. The remaining 2 Midnight Suns are at the top of the screen. Black Cat is dazed. There's no one even in his half of the board right now. Which basically leaves Blade or Voodoo to go next. In the end, Barry decides that maybe Blade is the right choice first, rather than Voodoo. Again, seeing with Magick and Storm sort of still lurking out there to come in, he goes with Blade. Blade moves and throws a hit at Domino. He does get 3 hits, although Domino does roll 2 defense, and he does 1 damage to Domino. He then spends to bump Blade, just to get that little bit closer to that centre, where again Domino is. You've got Rogue a little bit behind her, and then obviously Cable all the way down at the bottom of the screen with the Skrull right now. So Rid then sort of cogitates who he's going to activate next, who he's going to go with, and in the end decides with Storm. She's just going to go for a move, because obviously she's got that spider portal secured, so she doesn't need to stand next to it, and she'll go get within 3 of Blade, and she'll target him with a lightning bolt. She gets 2 hits, he rolls 1 defense, so it's just a single point of damage to Blade there. Again, building a bit of power on Storm. So that leaves Voodoo really to go next for the Midnight Suns. He is their last activation. He's going to move again towards that centre, because they're looking at trying to move down towards where this Skrull is right now. Obviously, Black Cat is waiting in the wings for next turn when she's undazed to be able to do something, and we'll see if she manages to... she's a good objective stealer. If anyone has played against her, she's got a great ability. It costs 3 and she has to be within 1, but it's an auto take of a token, off someone else. So Voodoo's going to move. He's going to Spirit Venom Domino. He manages to get 2 hits, but Domino unfortunately has cover, so she gets 2 defense and basically doesn't do anything with that Spirit Venom. So finally, you've got Magick. Magick will go see an unguarded spider portal at the top of the screen. She does take it, but she is then placed within 2. So Barry pulls her closer to Voodoo, so Voodoo can do horrible things to her next turn. But in response, she stabs Voodoo, because she doesn't like the look of him. And she manages 2 hits. Voodoo only gets 1 defense, so it's 1 damage gets through onto him there. And that's going to be the end of turn 2. So that puts the X-Men. The X-Men get 5 points now, because they've got the Skrull and 3 of the portals. So basically top their own deployment zone and the bottom spider portal. Midnight Suns only score 1, which takes them to 3. So it's currently 6 to the X-Men and 3 to the Midnight Suns. So coming into this next turn, obviously Barry's got a bit of catching up to do to Rid in turn 3. Black Cat is probably the best chance at the moment to now steal the Skrull. She's got that great steal ability that I mentioned that's on her card. She's got the power to do it. She is a fast mover, although once obviously the Skrull is in her hands, she then becomes slower. But she does have a place as well, so she's got options and the power to do them right now. So it's whether or not Barry thinks he can get the Skrull effectively and then get out of dodge. So he does start with her, and she moves along, obviously. She then pays 3 to steal the Skrull from Cable, and then that then reduces her move speed. So she goes to a small, which she will then back off. I'm not sure now if this was the right call by Barry in the direction that he moved her. Like he was trying to pull, I get what he was going for, he was trying to pull her back towards her friends. Maybe she should have gone more towards the bottom right, perhaps, I don't know, just to try and get away really from the opposing team. But she runs back small and grappling hooks, and then does a bump as well, just to try and put that little bit of distance between her. So obviously Rid now, he knows where she is. She's not moving any further. She's got the Skrull. So it's whether or not he goes straight for her or into someone else first. In the end, he chooses to activate Domino and shoot at Bulleye. He gets 3 hits in on Bulleye, and Bulleye only gets 1 defense, which then obviously scores him 2 damage into Bulleye. Shoots again with 3 hits and 1 defense, so it only does 2 damage, but that is enough to daze Bulleye, which again is keeping an activation a turn, because it did last turn with Black Cat, this turn with Bulleye, so it's slowing down the amount of activations Barry gets. Yeah, okay, he'll still retain priority, but giving him those more limited options is great. She did have to spend 3 to make a bunch of her Skrulls crits during this activation, though, just to ensure that she took out Bulleye. So Ghost Rider's going to activate next. He's going to bump on top of the train and then eye up what attacks that he wants to use. So he's going to use his beam attack, which I believe is called Flames of Hell. And I think it actually only hits in the end Domino. And he gets 1 damage through. Oh no, sorry, he does hit both. Sorry, he gets 1 damage through on Domino with 1 success and Domino failing to get any defense. And Rogue unfortunately rolls 3 defense like a champ, and no damage gets through. Especially because Cable actually intervened on Rogue and spent 2 to put his extra 2 defense dice on Rogue for that particular attack, just to give her that extra defense, which I think pumps her up to a 5 on her energy defense. And she has -1 damage, don't forget, so she's actually surprisingly tanky, especially once you start throwing those extra dice in defense of her. He then does a Penitent Stare, and Cable also defends Rogue again with his shield. So Rogue rolls 4 defense versus 3 hits. So Rogue has taken no damage from that set of attacks. Obviously, Ghost Rider usually does quite a bit of damage. So I think the fact that Rogue took nothing there was quite strong. And I think Rogue's in quite a tasty position now to do what Rogue wishes to do. So Magick's going to activate first. She's just going to double move. She's then going to use 3 power to use Journey Through Limbo to place Black Cat 3 and crucially incinerate her. So she's now, obviously all that movement she's done to get away from Cable and Rogue has sort of been undone, and incinerate obviously reduces her defense, which Black Cat being 3 defense across the board, but you can't re-roll against her, is actually, incinerating her down to a 2 defense is actually really good. Especially when you're in the position that you're in there with Rogue and Cable not having yet activated. So that kind of puts the ball in Barry's court to see what he can do next. So he chooses in the end to go against Rogue. He's going to throw an attack at her, which unfortunately does no damage, but does put bleed on her, which again is good for him. Just get a bit of damage into Rogue, just to force her at least every turn she's going to take a little extra damage, try and push her to taking her Storm, he then throws a Knight of the Damphere at her. She defends 3, but he does score 4, totaling 1 point of damage and bleeding her as well. Obviously, Storm has a mechanic where, kind of like Stealth, if she's just outside of 3, you can't target her, but she was within 3 to throw a lightning bolt at Blade, so obviously they are within 3 of each other. It also means that Blade doesn't need to move crucially, which I think is probably his important, his preference at the moment is just to try and whack out some damage on people. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. He does then move. I think actually at that point he must have used the Midnight Suns card where they all get an attack. I haven't written it down, so my apologies. I took terrible notes there. But I believe he must have done it to get an attack in on Storm, and then obviously he's moved closer to push himself closer to getting to that objective just off the X-Men's defence line. So next Cable's going to go. He's going to activate. He's just going to shoot Black Cat. He rolls 4 successes versus her 2 defence, doing 2 damage, leaving her on 3. He then takes a second shot, but unfortunately does no damage. Just an unfortunately low roll there from Rid. It can happen in Marvel Crisis Protocol. The dice can just sometimes say no, or sometimes say really good yes. That is, how dice games work. So, leaving it now to Voodoo, or well, that's it, isn't it? Voodoo. Voodoo is the only option left for the Midnight Suns. So he's going to move, and then he does a staff attack. Oh, sorry, no, Ridge just double-checking some measurements there with Cable just to see if there was anything else he could do to Black Cat, actually, at that point, I believe. Just because he's trying to... He would obviously have preferred to have taken out Black Cat with Cable, because then it leaves Rogue free to do Rogue things. So Voodoo is going to move. He's going to pay 3 to use his staff on Rogue, which is a 7-dice Mystic against Rogue's 3 Mystic defense, but Cable then throws in his shield that costs him 2. It shields her 3 damage coming in from Voodoo, 2 defense, so just does the 1 damage in the end. He then actually medpacks Black Cat just to try and stop Rogue from taking her out. So that leaves it with Rogue and Storm left to activate. Rogue's going to start. She's going to spend 3 power, pick up the platform, lob it on Black Cat. Black Cat is not liking having things thrown at her because she then takes 4 damage. She then punches Black Cat, saps power, but doesn't do any damage due to the defense that were rolled. So she punches the second time and just does 4 damage. Black Cat is obviously then completely knocked out and drops the Skrull. Rogue then, has a bit of power left over, so she's going to spend that to try and steal the life force from Voodoo, who has no power on him currently. So she does 4 damage on those 5 dice. Obviously, that's quite a substantial amount of Voodoo's health pool. So Storm is left to go. She is just gonna move, and then she's gonna place to pick up the Skrull. And there she is next to Cable towards the bottom objective. That's the end of that turn. So actually it puts X-Men again on another 5 points. So 3 for the portals, top, left and bottom, and 2 for the Skrull, puts them up to 11. The Midnight Suns again sadly only have their portal on their side, so it's 1 point which takes them to 4. So we're coming into quite close to the end of the game now. There's not a lot left in it. I think we're running close to about 15 minutes to the end of the round as well. So the two of them obviously can see that unless Barry can do a real strong fight back this turn, it hits really hard. He's on the back foot. It's difficult to then, killing Rogue is a challenge. Killing Storm probably is a little bit easier, and Storm does have the Skrull. Blade is next to that objective on the left as well, but he's a player down now that Black Cat is out of the mix, and she's the easy one to be able to steal objectives with. So Voodoo's going to go. He's going to attack Rogue because he just wants to daze Rogue, get her out of it for this turn. He does 3, I think it's 3 hits in. Cable again throws up the defense on Rogue and does manage to get 1 damage in and does sap her power twice. This is via a Spirit Venom, so again Rogue's taken 1 damage there due to her damage reduction. He then Spirit Venoms Rogue again, gets 3 hits versus her 1 defense, so 1 damage, which leaves Rogue on 1. So he picks up the train that Ghost Rider's standing on and throws it into Rogue. So Rid quite rightly plays Brace for Impact at this point to protect Rogue from death. Sorry, now this is where Siege to Darkness comes in. So Rogue, he's going to make an attack again into Rogue because he just wants to daze her. He wants her off the board for this turn to take her out so she can't do anything, which he does manage because he does another Spirit Venom, even through Cable's shield. Ghost Rider then throws an attack into Domino but doesn't do anything. Storm quite sensibly just double moves away with the Skrull because then the closest person to her is Blade, who hasn't yet activated. Bulleye basically pincushions Magick. He gets 2 hits and fires off his rapid fire trigger. Again, but unfortunately she does roll 3 defense, so he pays 1 to do 1 damage to her. His rapid fire attack then does 2 damage. He then does a throwing knife attack. He gets 3 hits into Magick. 1 is shielded, so he actually just daze Magick between that extra 2 damage. So that is Magick and Rogue dazed in this turn. So unfortunately, it might be a little bit too late for the Midnight Suns, but they're trying to claw something back. Domino goes next, looks at Blade as really the only threat now that can get to Storm, and shoots Blade with Domino, does 1 damage and triggers rapid fire, does 1 damage, and then shoots again, paying 1 to treat a skull as a crit, and then her third attack into Blade dazes him with a massive 4 damage. So that's Blade off the cards. There's no way he is now getting to Storm at the bottom. So we're down to 5 minutes left of the round. Ghost Rider is going to use Hell on Wheels. Now, he is going to come down to the bottom objective to attack Cable. I'm not sure if the better option here for Barry would have been the top objective to try and just take it. Again, I suppose we're in the last 5 minutes of the game, so maybe he was a bit rushed. Maybe he just decided he's going to lose. He might as well try and beat Cable up. So he's going to attack Cable with his Chains of Damnation. Does 1 damage and Hex. The second chain attack does 3 damage. He bumps for 1 then to get close enough to the spider. Then bumps for 1 to get close enough to the spider portal at the end. Fails to take the spider portal off the X-Men. And then Rid just skips his final activation, which means he scores 5 for holding 3 of the spider portals and 2 for the Skrull. Midnight Suns again only score that 1 finally on their right hand objective. So unfortunately that means that is a win or a lot. It's not unfortunate for the X-Men. Obviously the Uncanny X-Men coming through with 16 points right there in the last couple of minutes of the round, and the Midnight Suns ending on 5. So thanks for giving that a watch. I'm looking at doing another 2 rounds from this event. Unfortunately, the third round didn't record properly. The recording failed partway through, but I'm aiming to get the next 2 up in the next week or so. My intention is that I'll try and get one of these videos out every couple of weeks. I might try and intersperse it with some other non-tournament based reports, like just some random chat about the rosters I'm taking. I personally am not on any of these videos. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the table where the videoing was taking place, but I did bring Web Warriors to this event myself. I am looking at attending an event at the end of April as well, so hopefully I'll be able to give some feedback on how that went. Again, I'm running Web Warriors with a bit of a splash, but thanks for watching, and please tune in again next time.